Executive search, behind the scenes. This is episode 195. Episode 195. Well, hello there, gang. Welcome to the 30, where we provide relevant information to you, our viewers and listeners. I want to thank you for being here. The goal of the 30 basically is to help you to enhance your personal, professional, and spiritual lives. I'm your host, Patrick. I am the founder and managing principal of the Jackman Group LLC, where we focus on educating, training, and developing leaders, enhancing teams, and strategic planning. If this is your first time, thank you for being here. As I said, this is episode 195 as we work our way up to episode 200. Can you imagine what started 4 years ago, 4 years this month, back in 2020, where we started this small little program called Pause Break 30, would grow into 4 years later, a program that we still continue. The goal of the broadcast back then was to serve you, to help you, and to give you relevant knowledge that will help you, so that we can help you go through whatever you are going through. The goal is still the same, to help you, our viewers and listeners, to help you to enhance your personal, professional, and spiritual lives. So join us in, I think, 5 weeks. We got 5 weeks as we move to episode 200. I can't even believe it. Wow. Looking back then at program or episode 1 to where we are now, you probably have seen some drastic changes, and we will continue to evolve. So join us, I think it's May 9th, where we're targeted for 200 episode. And I hope that you can join us. As opposed to 30 minutes, we're going to extend the episode then 200 to 1 hour. And we're going to have a number of returning guests. We're going to have some giveaways, and we're going to have fun as we celebrate 200. Tonight, we are going to be talking about a topic that we probably wonder about. We've heard these words, executive search. We've probably heard executive search firms. And if you're like me wondering, well, what goes on behind the scenes? What happens? Well, I've invited a good friend of mine. We worked previously, probably is it 10, 11? It's been a long time, longer than that. Years ago, he is president of a search firm. I'm going to bring him in, and let's welcome David Barnette. David, welcome to the 30.
Glad to be here, Patrick. And man, congratulations on episode 200. I did not know that coming up. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but wow, congrats. That's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, I can't imagine. Oh man, 200. You should see what our first episode had looked like. It was a crazy time. My wife and I were squeezed into one frame, and we were trying to see what we can do to help everyone that was going through COVID. And now we are 195.
Wow. Well, congrats again. And yes, you're right. I'm sure a lot of evolution. I think every week we get new options on video and broadcast and production and all that. So I'm sure that you have gone through a lot of changes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, David, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, what is the company that you represent, so that
Yeah.
our viewers and listeners can get some idea about this search thing, executive search thing.
Yeah. No, happy to, Patrick. So yeah, no, David Barnette. I am a founder, co-founder, and president of Avant Executive Search. We broke out in 2020 as our own firm, as me and two other people, Laurie Ryan, who you also know, Patrick, that you worked with back from the Clearwater days. And yes, that was all the way back to what, 2013. So we're almost a decade, I guess, was the
Oh
end
my
of that.
gosh.
Yeah, I know. So Laurie is our chief commercial officer and really kind of helped us get the firm off the ground in terms of brand identity and really differentiation and value proposition, all that good stuff. Sonia Praise is my other co-founder, and so she had been a 30-year sole practitioner that I met in a boutique. That she decided to join a boutique a few years earlier, and I met her and. I guess right after I left Korn Ferry, which is, for those that don't know, Korn Ferry is the largest global executive search firm in the world. And that's where I met her and founded the firm. Prior to founding Avant, like I said, I spent 2.5 years at Korn Ferry. That was a career pivot for me. I had about a 20-year career in sales and marketing and some product leadership. Starting at AT&T, or Bell South at the time, which became AT&T, and then went on to Clearwire, where you and I got the opportunity to work together. And so I had the story of getting into it was interesting. I had been recruited by Korn Ferry, for a couple of roles, and they thought I might be good in executive search, and the conversation continued for about 4 or 5 years, and an opportunity came up in 2017, so that's when I made the jump.
Awesome. So why executive search? Going from sales, marketing
Yeah,
to executive
yeah.
search.
Yeah, interesting, good question. So after we had the exit to Sprint at Clearwire, all part of T-Mobile now. I had a couple of years where I actually did strategy consulting. I was working. I was sole practitioner. Well, I had one partner that you and I both worked with. During that time, a lot of what we did was I wasn't quite ready to make the jump into kind of really growing something as far as a consulting firm at that point. Korn Ferry had stayed in touch, as I mentioned before, and the opportunity came up to sort of lead their technology practice for the professional search group in North America. And I thought it would be pretty interesting. I'd worked in technology for a long time, and they had been telling me for several years, hey, you have a good network here. You've got a good personality you've got good knowledge around the sector. You could come in and we think be very successful doing this. And so it was just the result of a long relationship that I got to give them credit. They nurtured the relationship with me for a long time after a couple searches I was on, and just built trust in a relationship, and that really helped to sort of get me interested in it, and then really get me over the line to sign on and pivot careers.
Great. So how would you define an executive search firm?
Oh gosh. Well, you ask 10 people in the business that you'll get probably 8.5 different answers. But a lot of people like to get really I guess rigid is the best word for it, about what executive search really is and when it becomes more staffing or talent acquisition, recruitment. So executive search, a lot of people broadly define that as unfortunately, it sometimes gets defined by fees. So typically in this industry, and I apologize, I forgot to mute my phone. So typically in this industry, the fee structure has been about a third of the cash compensation for the executive. A lot of times, executive search firm, broadly speaking, will say fees of 100,000 or more. So if you think about cash compensations that start in the 300s, that would be kind of what the traditional executive search firm really focuses on. But it's expanded a lot, right? You have staffing firms that do frontline hires. Recruitment process outsourcing is a big deal today, where you hire big firms to be basically outsource talent acquisition for thousands and thousands of roles for big companies like Walmart, Apple, companies like that. And in between the C-suite, the high-paying roles, and the frontline roles, you have every sort of flavor of talent acquisition, search firm out there. So executive search, in a more broad sense, would really be, I would probably more define it as roles that start at director level and run up to C-suite and board. I think that's maybe a good way to think about it. If you're out in the market, not working in this space.
Okay, good. So again, you went from sales, you started working at a search firm, and then you decide, okay, I want to put up my own shop or shack or tent. What made you do that, and how was the transition going from working for someone to working for yourself?
Yeah, like I mentioned a minute ago, it wasn't the first time I had been an entrepreneur or solo, starting off on my own or my own company. And the difference this time was I'd had the experience of doing that before. I knew that if I was going to do it a second time, I needed to be committed to not just working job to job or client to client. And I'd need to be willing to invest what I made into building a brand, into building a team, growing our reach, and so that was motivating to me at that time. I think to the sense of why leave a big global firm and the boutique that I had landed at after the global firm. Look, Patrick, I think anytime you make a mid-career pivot, you're going to enter in the new industry with some ideas. You're gonna see it from a different lens than the people that have been in it for the last 10, 20, 30 years are going to see it from. And so I did see a lot of what I felt like were opportunities to make it better, based on not just the big global firm I work for, but also the boutique that I work for. I just saw some opportunities that, hey, I think we can make this a little bit friendlier experience for the candidates. I think that we can serve clients better. In a lot of different ways, from fee structure to the way that we report and interact with them on a project. And so it was really just the culmination. And me, I was never afraid of challenging the status quo. So it was one of those things of like, hey, I think there's a better mousetrap to be built here, and I have the right people as a core group to start this with. And we've grown it from the 3 of us to about 14 people around the globe.
Wow.
3 different continents. So yeah,
that's awesome. So let's look at it, David, and break it down a little more. Let's talk about the candidates and clients. So first, the candidates. Why would someone want to have an executive search firm work for them on their behalf?
It's a little bit different there. So typically, search firms are mainly, are always going to be working for the client side. Typically, there are some people that there are recruiters that focus the other direction, that are like, hey, I have a network and I can help you as a candidate get noticed by people in my network, things like that. But 99% of this and what we do is client side. So, a big Fortune 1,000 company, for example, private equity owned company, it could be anything, but they come to us and they say, hey, we need a new CEO, or we need a new VP of marketing, or whatever the role is, right? And so from a client perspective, there's a couple key drivers that dictate when they go out. And it's different for everybody, but there are a couple main ones that dictate when they decide to go outside and hire an agency like us to do a search for them versus do it themselves. One of the common ones is when it's confidential. So Patrick, imagine, there's a leader in the company that is retiring, and they don't want to let their team know yet before they're replaced. So nobody in the company can really go to market, right, about this role, because word could get around that the person's leaving. Unfortunately, it can also entail when a CEO or another C-suite, anybody really that you're doing the work for is being moved on from, and they have not been informed of that yet, and they want a replacement. So that's one key driver. Another one that comes up as much as any is really when they really are seeking it. That it's something where they have internal talent management, but they feel like they need outside help in terms of expertise for a specific role. Like, hey, we need to go to a firm that really understands this new role that we're creating. Hey, we've had 2 CFOs in the last 4 years, and we really got to make sure we get this one right. Let's employ a more rigorous process for selection this time to make sure that we do everything we can to get it right. And then sometimes it can be just basic capacity, Patrick. I mean, there's times when companies, they hit growth periods, and it doesn't make sense to expand the internal talent team for 6 to 12 months while there's a growth thing going on that's not going to be permanent, and maybe they need some augmentation of that internal team to help them get through that period where they have a lot of hires to make.
So, and you just hit on a great point, and I'm glad that a distinction was made between a recruiter and an executive search, because right,
Yeah.
most people think, like myself, at some point, is that, as I said, there's the candidate, which you identified more in terms of recruiter, but then the executive search is more on the client or the employer side of things. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see. So recruiters work for executive search firms. So they recruit, but then there's people. It just goes case by case. I mean, I have several former colleagues that really are in a place where they're more working with candidates, and they do a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of them are more. They're helping them with content, for their social media. They're helping them with getting their resume out in front of people to the network. They're helping them. They're coaching them. They're doing a lot of things to sort of make introductions. And a lot of times those people are, they do that because they're well connected within a certain industry, and they have a good network. So let's say you're a supply chain executive, and there's a former supply chain executive that turned to this line of work and said, hey, I can connect people, right? I can help people develop their careers. I can help them get in front of people. I can help them, build a personal brand that will advance their career, things like that. So that's you don't see a lot of big firms that specialize. That's more of a small firm solo practitioner type thing that you see a lot of. But any of the big firms the recruiters there are going to be focused on client side opportunities. Say, like an AT&T, for example, would be an example, or Coca-Cola, those type of clients, or anything, from really 50 million, 10 million and up.
Awesome. So I'm talking to David Barnette. He is the co-founder and president of Avant Executive Search and Talent Advisory. That's a long.
It is. Fortunately, it's our domain is a lot shorter than that at Avant Search. But yeah, it's the part of the business we do. Lori and partner Kim Manny-Smith in Dallas that came to us from Accenture. They work really on the advisory side, and that really is where we do compensate. So clients want help figuring out compensation. We've gotten really good at we have a couple services we subscribe to and trainings that we've taken to really develop best in class for compensation benchmarking around the world. So we help clients with, hey, I need to create a new role in Amsterdam. What am I going to have to pay in that local market to get this person? Or maybe a whole team they need to create. The other things that we do on that side of it, Patrick, are employer branding is one where Lori obviously has a big marketing background, so a lot of hers has been okay, how do we focus on the internal branding, and how does that match up to the broader market facing brand positioning of the company, and how do we marry those things? And then finally, really some organizational design work where, we've got a lot of former operators from client side that weren't always search or consulting people that really have a lot of experience and training in developing and building organizations. And so really helping refine org charts and think about growth initiatives and what should that team look like. So helping plan for those things.
Great. Now you frame your organization as a boutique.
Yeah.
Executive search. What does that mean? To give us.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I'm glad you asked the question. I think there's a lot of words that get thrown around that everybody pretends that they understand, but never really got a great explanation of. And when we say boutique, typically what we mean by that, whether it's in search or strategy consulting, anything like that, it generally refers to a smaller firm, right? One that you started up with. I mean, it could be a 2-3 person firm. It could be a really 100-person firm even. But when we say small, we're comparing them. So, for example, in our world, I would compare us, the top of the biggest people are Korn Ferry, Heidrick and Struggles, Russell Reynolds, companies like that. Those are all multi-billion-dollar global companies with hundreds of offices and thousands of partners and associates. And whereas a boutique, would typically be thought of as, probably, I mean, there's not a hard, fast rule, but I would say anybody that's, 100 or less would definitely be boutique, maybe even bigger than that.
Awesome. So what are companies, your clients looking for? Let's look at skill and maybe traits. When they hire you, what specific, or are there specific leadership skills and traits that they're looking for in the leader?
Yeah, so that's going to vary a lot. I mean, it really depends on the type of company. And I mean, we work with a lot of private equity owned companies. Private equity is pretty notorious for, we have a certain mindset or a certain sort of set of soft skills that we look for. Very adaptable, very entrepreneurial, very results, fast paced. You compare that to, a Fortune 100 where, there's a cadence, there's a very established cadence to that role, whether it's a VP or even a C-suite. You come in, you got your chief of staff, you've got your executive leadership team meetings all set, you've got everything's pretty much there. And it's your job to really come in and make it better or fix something. And so each one's going to be a little bit different. And then you go all the way down to startup and smaller company, and it varies, right? You tend to wear a lot more hats for those roles. So I think if we had to distill this down to maybe the most in the broadest sense, I think what I would say is that there is maybe a little bit more premium, not maybe, there's definitely more of a premium placed on a strong soft skill set these days than maybe there was before the pandemic. I mean, we always talked about soft skills and the importance of, 10 years ago, but more since the pandemic, especially with all the change and dynamic elements of the workforce with work from home and remote and or hybrid remote, and some of the dynamic challenges in the market today. I think, and generational changes, right? We're going through a big driver, not just in the States, but globally. There's a big driver from baby boomers handing off to, baby boomers and Gen X really handing off to millennials and then Gen Z and things like that. So being able to navigate, across generations and relate to people and, understand and empathize and be able to motivate a lot of different types of profiles. From a personality and generational perspective, I think there's more of a value placed on that than maybe there ever has been.
Great, David. And I'm talking again to David Barnette of Avant Search. If you have any questions for him, you can drop them in the chat. I'm sure he would love to answer any questions, or if you just want to say hi to him. David, what is the best way to be noticed by a search firm? Let's say ABC company is looking to hire, whether it's a director or a manager or VP or CEO. What's the best way for someone to be noticed by a search firm or by your search firm?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I think if I look at one of the things, the before and after, right, there was what I thought about search firms when I was in my corporate career prior to search. I knew guys at all the big ones. I'd been recruited by, for different roles at different times, and so I had kind of a viewpoint about, okay, this is who they are and what they do. And it's kind of funny because on that side of it, I tended to think that they had, just this huge roster of jobs just sitting there in the company all the time, where there's going to be a couple that are fit for me. And, that it's not. Even the biggest global search firms are not a job store. I mean, it's not just like they have them sitting on the shelf waiting to go at any given time. So there's a lot more. I say that to make the point that you need to take a long-term mindset in building relationships with search firms, because the chances are, if you reach out to me and we meet, and I try to meet with at least 5 new people each week. I get a lot of requests, and I try to stick to a schedule of like, okay, I'm going to challenge myself to at least meet 5 of these new folks a week. What I tell them in those meetings, Patrick, is that, the chances of me actually placing you are almost, it's not 0, but it's more, one is closer to 1 than 100. I'll tell you that, a lot closer. And a lot of that's just because it's a timing thing, right? It's a right place, right time thing where everything has to line up perfectly. And so the mentality I would tell people to take to getting noticed by a search firm is target a few that let's say you're in a certain industry. Maybe you're in hospitality, right? You've been in hotel and restaurant work. Google some search firms, look up some search firms that have a track record of making placements in that space, and make a point to try to meet some of those people with the idea that you're going to build a relationship with them over time. Because here's what happens. I have helped people get jobs that I was not retained for because, I knew of them. I heard in search world, we're all friends, we have colleagues. I hear of people that are working on projects, and I am more than happy if you've impressed me and been really courteous, and you seem very expert, and we've built a relationship. I have no problem referring you to a colleague that's working on something that's maybe relevant for you at that time, and we do hear about those things. So that's the thing. I would treat it like I'm going to build a good relationship with as many of these folks as I can, and that way they may not have it, but when they hear of something or a partner of theirs has it or something like that, they know who I am at that point. That's what I would encourage people to do.
Great. Where do you see the executive search firm industry going? Where do you see your company going?
Oh gosh, So search is changing a lot. I mean, I will be dead honest with you. When I got into it, I almost laughed a little bit because it was, come in, I guess, what was I, 47, 48 at the time. I come into this, felt a lot like Mad Men. You remember that TV show Mad Men, where it was about, the ad agency business in the 50s, 60s kind of thing. It's crazy. I mean, there's a lot of egos in this space. There's a lot of, I would say, arrogance in this space as well, and that's not something I really like. And so I think there's a lot of work being done, a lot of transitional things. Like I said, some of this is generational. I think that the space is changing a little bit to where you're going to see more firms, I think, be more open to working across levels than they have in the past, where some firms might have said, we only do C-suite and board. And they really stuck to that. They meant it. And they felt like it was important to say that because it was all about prestige and branding and things like that. When the truth is, I would tell you, you learn more about a company doing director and VP roles than you do C-suite roles. 9 times out of 10, especially if you do multiples across function, you know more about that company. And I think there's value in that. You can provide better depth and value to the client when you approach it like that. And I think you'll see more people be open to that. I think that the other area that I see it evolving is really, I think we'll get to a place where there's more wraparound services that actually get integrated a little bit better than has been done in the past. Because if you think about it, there's an opportunity for coaching when you make a new placement, right? Anybody that goes into a new role has to make a transition. So bundling some support for a coaching, executive coaching, things like that. I could see, I think there's people trying to, make moves in that direction to be able to incorporate more value-added services for not just the clients, but the candidates that they place.
That's great. Well, there's room for us, for the Jackman Group, who's
That's
involved
right. You can always be a referral partner.
exactly training and executive coaching. So we'll definitely have to partner, David.
There you go. There you go. I'm always happy to talk.
Absolutely. David, as we end, let's say, what would you tell a young David Barnette, 20 years old? What would you tell him now with what you know currently and experience?
Now, I tell you what, if you go back about 6 years, I'd have told him to do better in school. Yeah, all kidding aside on that. No, I think, I would say that I did a pretty good job of kind of maybe around late 20s, understanding that there's no magic formula to, I think a lot of us in our career thinking that, because somebody went to an Ivy or Wharton, they're better than us, or you know what I mean, an Ivy like Wharton, they're better than us, or that, if you work at McKinsey or somewhere like that, there's some magic playbook that you get that, has the answer to everything, and there's not, right? And I think it takes everybody a little bit of time to sort of realize that, hey, if I'm diligent, if I'm smart, if I'm doing my homework, if I'm really engaged, I am just as capable of coming up with game-changing, big time ideas and implementing those as anybody else, no matter where you started from.
Okay, great. All right. As we end, I thank you so much, David, for being here. I know we tried to connect weeks ago, but we couldn't. So it was all timing, right? So thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate it. As we end, we ask all of our guests, we put them through what's called rapid fire. And this is where I ask some 4 or 5 questions, and without thinking, just give me your answers. Quick,
okay.
right?
I'll do
all right.
my best.
Okay. Favorite food?
Favorite food? Red beans and rice has always been my favorite.
All right. Good deal. Now, I know that you're a musician because I'm always seeing you on Facebook, well, on LinkedIn or Facebook playing your guitar. Favorite type of music?
More Facebook, yeah.
Favorite type of music?
I grew up as a skate punk in the 80s, man. So I loved all that, I loved Bad Brains and, all that type of stuff back in the day. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Favorite place to vacation?
Place of vacation. Gosh, you know what? I'll tell you, my favorite vacation the last 10 years is just going down to St. John, renting a Jeep, and just going and finding a beach every day, and go hang out in Red Hook at the night. That's about my favorite day on vacation.
So needless to say, wherever there's a beach, a good beach, then you'll vacation.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, favorite saying or quote?
Oh gosh, so many. But as an innovator, disruptor type, I love the Henry Ford quote of, if I'd asked my customers what they wanted, they'd have said a faster horse.
Okay. All right. Good. Last one. What is the last leadership book you read?
So the last one I read was, Catalyst. It was the one about the 4 things that, of how to convince people, to agree or come to, agreement with you in challenging situations. It was really, really good one.
Okay, great. David, you are off the hot seat.
I made it off. All right. I kind of feel like I almost feel like the end of Family Feud there, man.
David, thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it. Much success with what you're doing in terms of your search firm. Say hi to Lori, and we'll connect soon. Okay.
All right, man. Thank you so much, Patrick. So great to see you again.
Well, one last thing. If someone wants to reach you, a client, where can they reach you?
Yeah, no. So avantsearch.com. That's really it. avantsearch.com, and that's our website. And then you can track me down pretty easily on LinkedIn also. So that's where most people get me.
Okay, great. Thank you, David.
All right. Have a good night,
Okay.
Patrick.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, so we've been talking to David Barnette. He is the co-founder and president of Avant Search. Make sure that if you are a client and you want to contact him, avantsearch.com. I'm sure he will welcome the opportunity to talk with you. Well, we are at the end of episode 195. If you would like to get a hold of us, you can simply email us at info@jackmangroup.llc.com. That's info@jackmangroup.llc.com. Do me a huge favor. We have just updated our website, and I would like to have you go look at it and give us some feedback. Go to jackmangroup.llc.com. That's jackmangroup.llc.com. Check out our new website, our updated site, and please let us know your feedback, good, the bad, and the ugly. Would love to hear from you. And you can send us an email with your comments, whether up, down, in between. But we would love to capture your feedback about our website. We also have some merch on there. If you would like to purchase some of our merch, on one of the tabs is shop, and you can go shop buy as many things that you would like to. You can Christmas shopping right in April. So if you want to go Christmas shopping in April, or if you want to purchase something for yourself or for a significant other, go shop on our site, jackmangroup.llc.com. Well, friends and folks, we look forward to having you on next week, where we'll look to have another exciting guest. 5 weeks from episode 200. I think we're looking at May 9th is what I calculated. So until next week, may God bless you and your family. Thank you for being here. We look forward to seeing you. Peace.